Bonjour, Kinamagi and Ireland Indigenous, and welcome to this episode of Social Studies Explorer. My name is Kinamagi and Ireland, and I will be your guide as we look at day 5 of the Eastern Woodlands. All right, so over the course of this unit, we've looked at the Pacific Northwest, the Haida people, stretching from Alaska through British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, and even Northern California. Then we've come down here and looked at the Southwest, featuring the ancestral Puebloans and the Navajo and Hopi. We've looked in the middle of our country, the Great Plains, and that's where you're going to find the Lakota, amongst many, many others. And now we've been in the Eastern Woodlands. Sometimes the Eastern Woodlands is split between the Northeast and Southeast. You may be a little more familiar with this region as our three fires are in the Eastern Woodlands. So a lot of what we're talking about will be based here in the Great Lakes. Also this region of New York, the Finger Lakes are, that's where you would find the Haudenosaunee. But today's focus will be mostly on Michigan. We'll be briefly touching on trade, family structure, land use, property ownership, and government. And you're going to see that this is from some teaching material, so I'm going to go past a few things. One key word is Confederation, a group of leaders who work together for the benefit of their members. We've talked a lot about the Iroquois Confederacy with the Mohawk, Seneca, Oneida, Cayuga, Onondaga. But we also had a confederacy here in the Great Lakes, the three fires, Ojibwa, Odawa, Potawatomi. And we've just looked at, this is a version of what we just did on the Google form. When we get to this quiz, you'll need to be able to identify these regions. So we had a web here, and we're going to look at the answer to the web about what we make. In our groups that we're talking about with the three fires are the Ojibwa, Potawatomi, and Odawa, also known as the Chippewa, Potawatomi, and Ottawa. Some of our key foods include fish, berries, including monomen, corn, and also other meats like venison in particular. Things they do, trading was huge and farming was huge. Living in this region, there was the ability to farm during the spring and summer and store items that they could use during the winter. We mentioned the hunters right here. Things that we make include canoes, which may be dug out of white birch. We also have the black ash baskets, and more information about these things can be found at the Ziebling Center down the street from SCA. Our houses were known as wigwams, and you could see it using our teaching lodge, a similar idea. It would be layers of poles put together, covered, although in this case often by bark, with a hole in the middle, so they'll let out smoke. And then that's compared to the long houses that you might find with the Iroquois or Haudenosaunee. We also can compare that to the apartments in the Pueblo communities. So we're looking at the southern shore of Lake Superior, so Michigan, also Northeast Michigan as well. And that would stretch even down into the Saginaw Valley. Potawatomi are best known for being in Southwest Michigan, right along the lake, along Lake Michigan. They were also known to have been in the area near Saginaw as well. Ottawa, the eastern shore of Lake Michigan, north of the Potawatomi. And this, you may note that a lot of these nations still include do have reservations of land in these similar areas, although the Potawatomi do not have a reservation near Saginaw anymore. What were the houses like? Wigwams is the key, and that's the word for house. The Ojibwa are a little smaller and rounder. Potawatomi has some rectangular lodges. So there wasn't always exactly the same with the three fires. A lot of what we're talking about is going to have a lot of similarities, but there would be small differences amongst bands and communities. You see some of the items we eat: maple syrup. We have the sugar bush that we talk about here at SCA. And obviously fishing is going to be huge because we live in the Great Lakes. Looking through some of this, farming, hunting, trapping was a huge thing. See some of the items that are made. Again, get a lot of chances when we get the community together to see some of these items for sale. You can see the Northeast and Southeast region. And then we'll end with looking at the examples of people of the Northeast going outside of the Great Lakes. But this realistically, the Northeast follows the entire area where we have our creation story and our migration from the Atlantic to the Great Lakes. And you can see just a huge number of states that it covers. And we get the woodlands because it's wooded. It has a lot of rivers as well. Houses, how did people use human and environment interactions? Trees were used for houses and boats and tools. You use the items that are around you. Forests provide a lot of food. Rivers and lakes can be used for food and transportation. Rivers were our original highways. And the soil was good for farming. Two different distinct dialects of language families, Algonquian and Iroquoian. Anishinaabe will be in the Algonquian category. And in the Southeast, that's going to go into the Southeastern United States. We're looking south of the Ohio River here. Still a lot of woods, a little more variety in environments, saltwater marshes along the coast. It's a little bit warmer here, a little bit longer growing season. And as you get into Florida, it's hot and humid. And you have the Everglades, which would have provided just an immense amount of material for the nations living in that area. There were river valleys for building villages, forests for hunting, good soil. In this region, there were more language families, less skilled farmers, and mostly permanent villages. Finally, with confederations, just as a reminder, many Native American nations did kind of band together and work together for defense, including our three fires. We're soon wrapping up this portion of chapter 2. There will be an assessment coming in the next day. If you have any questions prior to that point, reach out to me at mireland@sagchipschool.net. Have a minute, Gijigad, Minwa, Bamapi.